As a recap to last week's chapter, I'm doing something a little different than I normally do because I'm actually creating this recap before I finish editing the previous chapter. The reason for this is because that chapter hit me quite hard. In fact, I had to stop for about 10 minutes to collect myself before I could go on reading. When my uncle shared his story about his sister Marie, who was my grandmother, it reminded me of a very sad time in my life and the fact that I did not get a chance to see her when she was in the hospital, which goes to show you just never know when it's your time. And of course, the story about Father Kern's passing is interesting because Father Kern had been the pastor of Holy Trinity prior to Father Jay becoming the pastor there. So he had a long history with that particular church. That story is told in more detail in Father Jay's first book, On My Way Home. And if you are interested, the entire Book 1 is available on my channel and easy to find under the playlist Father Jay Stories. Now let's move ahead and see what happens in the next chapters of Father Jay's book. Part 2. One of the first conflicts I encountered as a youngster was the image of God I was taught as a child and the reality of God that I was actually experiencing. There was, literally, a world of difference. In the primary grades and in the seminary, I seemed to become more and more conscious of sin rather than of God's love. The image of God, as described by authorities, somehow conveyed a God who was the punisher, who knew every thought I had, good or bad, and was ready to pronounce judgment on me at any moment. The God I learned about caused accidents, sickness, and death at random. He was a disciplinarian. My classmates shared these same views whenever we discussed our relationship to God. Such frightening images made a deep impression on my young mind, in spite of a loving picture of God I received from my parents. Also, I am not sure about other priests, but I do remember from my altar boy days that Father Ferdinand de Knut, in his sermons, always presented a God who was loving, fatherly, and approachable, and quick to forgive. Nevertheless, in my little mind, the negative view of God somehow seemed to take hold more than the positive. Why not? I believed in those days that if I ever ate a piece of meat on Friday, I was going to hell forever. In the following chapters, I address our relationship to God and how we are all united to one another in God. I spend no time in painting a picture of a God, as many still believe, that is much too small to run a world, or better yet, a whole universe. It is truly amazing to know that there are great numbers of sincere people who still carry some pretty warped ideas about the perfect, infinite, all-powerful, loving Creator, who has no equal in the universe, and I am not excusing myself. I was one of them. I appreciate God's magnitude a lot more today than I did in the past, but the revelation and understanding of the infinite never ends. Chapter 7. My response to God's grace. I fled him down the nights and down the days. I fled him down the arches of the years. I fled him down the labyrinthian ways of my mind and in the midst of tears. I hid from him and under running laughter. By Francis Thompson. As far back as I can remember, there was never a time when God seemed totally distant. Whether things were going well or not, I still remembered that God was present and had something to do with what was happening. I have been through some ugly situations and also a few devastating ones. Regardless of how horrible the circumstances may have been, it was still relatively easy for me to remember God's presence, even if it were merely an opportunity to blame God for my problems. As I grew spiritually, I began to realize that God has never been the cause of my unhappiness, nor could he be. God, by his very nature, wishes only the best for his children. My early life at home with the family had a lot to do with my image of God. We often spoke of God in ordinary conversation. God was always a part of our lives. It was, and still is, a common practice among Arabic-speaking people. For instance, in my early home life, we rarely ever used expressions as good luck, hope all goes well, have a safe trip, and so on. Rather, we would say Allah Mayak, meaning God be with you. The English letters transliterate directly from the Arabic. I am not sure how to spell these Arabic words, so any incorrect use of English phonetics is my error. And thanks to Tony Abudib, who helped me with the Arabic. Another expression frequently used was Nishkur Allah, or thank God. Heard just as often is the familiar expression Insha'Allah, or God willing. Anytime we were saying goodbye to a relative or friend, or planning a trip hoping to arrive at one's destination or to return safely, Insha'Allah was used. In desperate situations, my mother always looked up to the heavens crying out, Ya Rabbi, translated, O God, meaning, I need help. When suddenly confronted with a frightening situation, my parents would cry out, Ismas Shalib, or in the name of the cross of Christ, may I be protected. If someone died, the usual statement was, Allah Yurhamu. If it were a female that died, the last word would be feminine form, Hama. I have a plaque in my home which says, Hede min fadal Rabbi. Freely put in English would be, all I have is from the generosity of God. It is plain to see that I came from a culture that was God-conscious. Not only was the existence of God taken for granted, but the presence of God was a reality and not just an intellectual concept. Nothing was left to chance. God was very much involved in our daily lives, our daily activities, our jobs, our families, our country, our purpose in life, our troubles, our celebrations, and so forth. Our relationship to God was everything. Nevertheless, when I reflect on my pursuit of truth and my relationship to God, I realize it was not all that simple. Being involved in multiple situations that challenged my faith and trust in the Lord, who showered me with gifts, I still found it hard to accept the invitation of a divine being who made himself known but not seen. The seed of faith must be watered and nurtured until at some point we make a leap of faith that rises to another level. As our view of reality broadens, we can, without any doubt, finally come to the conclusion that Christ was always drawing us to himself. It was a hard lesson to learn. We are never abandoned. On the contrary, it is he who tracks us down like a hunter and finally brings us to our knees in prayer. Perhaps, then, you can identify with my personal experience with the divine hunter who would not give up on me, even when I was on the edge of giving up on myself. One day, in meditation, the following words poured out of me. It was mostly inspired by the very experiences I was having but did not understand fully. Since I was a child, I have always felt his presence. It was a presence of a pursuer, seeking his prey, and I prayed. I questioned my experiences. Were they just wild imaginings, or did the dreams, visions, and mystical experiences really happen? The human mind challenges anything out of the ordinary, but there was always evidence in my path. Did someone care that much about me? As time moved on, so did my pursuer. I thought he would give up. He said he would never stop as long as I kept running. And running I did. I hid. It did me no good. He was always there, waiting with arms outstretched. You have nothing to fear, my son. I am with you through every dark moment on your path. No one can keep up this pace. The chase would surely end soon. But no, not the pursuer. He would not let me go. Did he know things about me that I did not know? I paused. Can there be a thought without a source? Do not all flowers have roots? How could I be so blind as to think I just came to be, quite by accident? Yet I continued to run, even gallop, no longer moving in a straight line, missing every turn and tripping often. But there he was, that voice that wouldn't stop. When I was down and all seemed lost, he said to me again, You have nothing to fear, my son. Simply take hold of my hand. I took a step forward, feeling very awkward. in territory unfamiliar. Then my steps seemed to widen. I leaped, and what a joy, what a beautiful world I began to see. Beyond the eyes, beyond the veil, the view is magnificent. I could see with clarity what really is. The truth is all-encompassing. Nothing is less than what it should be. Whenever the thought of the past emerges, and I feel drawn to the world of sleep, he reminds me, "You have nothing to fear, my son. What is, will always be." Chapter 8. We are all one. Every human action, mental or otherwise, takes place in the context of relatedness. By Diarmuid Omuchu. Good evening, friend. What are you doing? I am throwing these starfish back in the ocean. If I don't, they'll die here on the sand. There must be thousands of starfish on this beach. You can't possibly save them all. You can't possibly make a difference. He smiled, picked up yet another starfish, and threw it into the sea. It makes a difference to that one. By Mark Hansen and Jack Canfield, adapted. Calling a friend on the phone makes us feel quite close to the party on the other end of the line, but talking to God is infinitely closer and more important. How do I know that Almighty God is listening to my prayer among the millions of prayers going on all the time? God listens to every prayer at the same time because we are never really separate from God. Most of us are caught into a thought pattern that everything is separate. We are all on our own. Why not? Our environment testifies to that situation. We all live in different homes, own different cars, have our own line of work, and have our own set of problems. No one else is going to take care of our bills, pay our rent, or buy groceries for us. Those actions are separate, and to all appearances, everything and everyone is separate from every other. You take care of your life, I take care of mine. That is commonly believed. Statistics betray us by emphasizing our separateness. The following was given to me on April 19, 1999. If we could shrink the Earth's population to a village of precisely 100 people, with all the existing human ratios remaining the same, it would look like this: 57 Asians, 21 Europeans, 14 from the Western Hemisphere, North and South America, 8 Africans, 52 would be female, 48 would be male, 70 would be non-white, 30 white, 70 would be non-Christians, 30 would be Christians, 89 would be heterosexual, 11 homosexual. 59% of the entire world's wealth would be in the hands of only 6 people, and all 6 would be citizens of the United States. 80 would live in substandard housing, 70 would be unable to read, 50 would suffer from malnutrition, 1 would be near death, 1 would be near birth, 1 would have college education, and 1 would own a computer. From all external measurements and human logic, it would seem quite clear that we live in a terribly unfair, dysfunctional, unjust, and unreasonable world in which the distribution of wealth, territory, education, and the standard of living are a disgrace. Everybody and everything appear totally separate, and granted, it is a disgrace. Yet the thought of each person being completely separate from everyone else is the greatest lie ever to confront the human mind. The truth is that we are all one, and I am not speaking in figurative language. Regardless of appearances, I still affirm that we are one. In fact, in the grandest order of things, we are remarkably more united than separate. Spiritually, we are all one. We cannot separate spirit. We cannot divide it, break it up into little pieces, cut it, or destroy it. Spirit is indivisible. Spirit is one. Since we were created pure spirit by divine spirit, we too essentially are spirit. Although spirit by its very nature cannot be divided and we are many, none of us lose our identity while sharing the same spirit of life, God's spirit. Outside of God, there is no life. St. Peter grasped this idea when he said that through the gifts God gave us, we become sharers in the divine nature. Many songs are written with that same theme, such as, "We are one in the Spirit, we are one in the Lord." Ask a young child, "Where is God?" Without hesitation, the child will answer, "God is everywhere." If we open our eyes and observe closely, the ocean can be seen as one body of water, or it can be considered an accumulation of millions and millions of drops of water. We are all familiar with St. Paul's beautiful analogy of being one in the Spirit by considering the human body and its composition of many parts, as found in 1 Corinthians 12-28. The body is one and has many members, but all the members, many though they are one body. If the foot should say, "Because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body," would it then no longer belong to the body? If the ear should say, "Because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body," would it then no longer belong to the body? If the body were all eye, what would happen to our hearing? If it were all ear, what would happen to our smelling? As it is, God has set each member of the body in the place He wanted it to be. There are, indeed, many members, but one body. Even the members of the body which seem less important are, in fact, indispensable. If one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. If one member is honored, all the members share its joy. You, then, are the body of Christ. Every one of you is a member of it. Our bodies are an amazing phenomenon. They are nothing short of miraculous when they are viewed as organisms made up of many millions of individual cells. The actual composition of our bodies is startling. According to the American biologist, Dr. Hudson Hoagland, there are about 500 billion cells that die each day and are replaced with new ones. This should not cause anyone to worry or to lose any sleep. Our bodies are made up of about 60,000 billion cells. Side note, which I believe is like 60 trillion. An interesting corollary to this is that since energy cannot be destroyed, the billions of cells that die each day are changed back into their basic building blocks of atoms and molecules. These same atoms are converted into food that become part of the cells in another person's body, or the atoms of one person are inhaled by another. Scientifically, we can say that we are swapping atoms all the time. Extending this concept even further, we can actually say that we all share, to some degree, some of the atoms that made up the body of Jesus 2,000 years ago, including the body of Moses, Abraham Lincoln, or Mother Teresa. When we ask the question, are we also connected physically? Very much so. Our bodies are continually renewing themselves. The composition of the human body is mostly liquid. Dr. Rudolf Schonheimer, an authority in this field, stated that all constituents of living matter, whether functional or structural, are in a steady state of rapid flux. Our bodies are mostly composed of liquids in constant circulation, so that our chemical factory, under the direction of the subconscious mind, can change the great variety of food we eat into new and exact molecules that make up the different nerves, tissues, muscles, blood, brain cells, etc. The British authority, Sir Charles Dodds, affirms that in the human body, the total turnover of proteins occur in about 80 days, while the liver and serum proteins were turned over in 10 days, and the lung, brain, bone, skin, and principal muscles in 158 days. To put it in another way, when we meet a friend we have not seen for about 6 months, we will recognize that friend immediately, even though all the protein that made up his or her face has been changed and there is not one molecule in it that was there when we last saw that person. This is true of every human being, of everything that is alive. Although the cells that make up our bodies change frequently, changes in appearance, what we look like to others, take place rather slowly as we age with time. Our minds, of course, are also joined together. There is only one mind, God's mind. Again, we simply share in the mind of God. We are generally not aware of this fact at all. Later, my reflections will center on the purpose and power of meditation and the exhortation of St. Paul to put on the mind of Christ. We will also explore in another chapter the three aspects of the human mind: the conscious, the subconscious, and the superconscious mind. In a practical way, we do recognize our oneness. Witnessing, for example, an accident, we immediately feel terrible about what happened to a friend, relative, or even a total stranger. When someone dies, the sorrow is felt by everyone. Too bad. She was such a nice person. Or, can you imagine? Cut off so early in life? These are average, normal comments we often hear. And it is quite appropriate to show compassion and concern for others in distant lands. We may not sense it consciously, but we feel bonded to those who meet an untimely death, even though we have never crossed paths in this life, and never will. Take, for example, the news on August 9th, 1998, that 11 Americans were killed when 2 American embassies were blown up at the same time, senselessly killing so many employees. Around the same time, others were killed in the Sudan or in China from a horrible earthquake and floods. Being connected, we feel their pain. Thousands of families grieving over other members of the human family we never have nor ever will meet in our lifetime. We are all in this together. What we don't realize is that there is another side to everything that takes place in our lives or in the lives of those around us. We are slow to comprehend that there are purposes being fulfilled at every moment. There are reasons for everything that has an impact on our life. We are here to experience, and through those experiences to remember who we are and our relationship to our Creator. This is the purpose of human life. There are no accidents. How could there possibly be accidents with an all-knowing, infinite being who has perfect knowledge of all things, which unfold in our experience as past, present, and future? Jesus says that even the hairs on our head are numbered by the Lord, that every tiny sparrow that falls to the ground is known by God, that the flowers in the field are decorated by the Lord to the point of being more beautiful than Solomon in all his royal robes, and that God does not take time off, neither on weekends nor holidays. My Father goes on working. Nothing escapes the mind of the Creator. Yes, God sees all life, all forms of life, in all places at one and the same time. There is only one source, and everything is related to that source. So why shouldn't there be communication on all levels among all forms of life? After all, God's children are all connected in mind and spirit, and in body through atoms which are interchanged all the time. I had a personal experience with our connectedness one day while driving to Warren, Michigan to visit my sisters. I was on the freeway when I suddenly got off at the wrong exit. It was raining furiously, and I could not see well in front of me. I became confused when I came off the ramp. I decided I had to go a little further to get back on the freeway. Again, I made another wrong turn. Now I found myself very close to Mount Olivet Cemetery. It was still raining hard. I decided that instead of going back to the freeway in what was almost a rainstorm, I would enter the cemetery and visit my parents' graves, if I could find them. I had not gone to visit their graves in almost 2 years before that day. There I was, with the wind and rain blowing furiously, getting all wet and looking for their graves, which were never easy to find. I finally began to give up. There was no way I could find their grave, and I was not going to go to the front office to find the exact location and all the way back again. Frustrated, I started back to the car. In desperation, I happened to look down one last time at a grave just before stepping over it. I was stunned. There was my mother's grave right in front of me. I thought for a moment, why am I standing here in the rain, getting all wet at this time? Then the thought became a flash of light. This is the anniversary of my mother's death, her 25th anniversary. I prayed in tears, then got back on the road. Death itself is unable to separate us. We remain connected as one. Even time and space cannot break the bond. Thank you for listening, and please join us every Sunday for our watch party at our new premiere time of 2:30 Pacific Time as I premiere the next chapters of Father Jay's book.